This might be the first time in a long time that I made a video specifically for a single weapon. So you might be thinking, that should mean this weapon is absolutely brilliant, right? No. If you had a look at my primary video, link in the cards, you would have noticed that default Nagantaka is nowhere to be found. That's because of this. Look at it. Even for a semi-auto weapon, this is some terrible performance. However, the burst mode has an okay performance, but given it empties the clip, you wouldn't be heavily relying on it. So let's compare them and see what we got. We have 10% more critical chance, which is absolutely brilliant. It goes from being an okay crit weapon to a good crit weapon. We have 2 more shots in the magazine and 14 more total damage, which is about 8%. And the physical damage spread have not changed and is still at 90% slash. So you might be wondering what kind of a score the Prime one can get. And here's the answer. It is about 40% better, which would have been a massive deal if the base version was any good. But in reality, comparatively speaking, the base is just terrible and this is just bad. As for the burst, I have to admit, in terms of just number game, it is acceptable. But as you could have guessed, that has little to no meaning when it is as unreliable as this burst fire. It empties the whole magazine and unless you have an aimbot, you won't be hitting full headshots on multiple targets, especially considering it has significant recoil as well. Additionally, even with this performance, as an automatic fire mode, in Mastery Rank 12, this weapon wouldn't have made my recommended weapons list. But how about that gimmick, you might ask? Which is, if you get a headshot kill, you will get 50% reload speed. Granted, assuming you could always keep the buff active, the performance of the primary fire will look like this, which is in the okay weapon tier. And this for the burst mode, which would actually make the list as a weaker option. But the weapon can't keep the buff active at all times, because not only the buff is non-refreshable, it is on headshot kill, which means if a proc kills the target, you won't even get the buff. And a note about this weapon's description. At first, after I read it, I assumed that we have an additional chance of getting bleeds. But I tested it and found no such thing. Which means this part of this weapon's description is not only redundant, it's also misleading. It is like saying the weapon has chance to do critical hits. That is so obvious, you'll say they surely mean something else. There is no way they seriously wrote that, is there? But apparently there is. And I know what some of you might be thinking. If this weapon isn't super good at level 100, perhaps it is extra good at higher levels where slash procs can be more significant. And I would say, Warframe as of right now is mainly a horde shooter, which means weapons with low fire rate without absurd damage outputs or AoE effects are not very effective inherently. And additionally, look at this value. It is over 2 seconds, which means this weapon has a chance to do bleed ticks twice. So we already are using this weapon's bleeds. If this weapon's corrupted heavy kill time was 0.8 seconds, then we could say maybe this weapon can be super good at higher levels, because then we could get slashes. But it isn't. And as such, this weapon is not a top tier steel path candidate. So, in conclusion, in my humble opinion, while this weapon is not mastery fodder, it is not far from it. If you like the look or the sound, then I would say go for it. But if you want just performance, you should look elsewhere. And with that, I shall see you guys later, and bye bye.